Welcome back to the Every Choice YouTube channel. Today's class will be learning how to make this beautiful overlap dress with bishop collar and puff sleeve. It's a very simple tutorial and it's beginner friendly. If this is something you would like to learn, kindly stay tuned to the end of this tutorial. Thank you. To make this dress, I'll be cutting it directly on my fabric. So I'm using this fabric and I have the fabric folded into two first. Then after folding it two, I'm going to fold it into four because I'm cutting both the front and back together. And when I'm folding like this, you can see the part that is opened like this. I'm going to leave 1 inch for my zipper allowance, and then this first two that is closed is going to be the one for the front, while this is for the back. So now I'll start taking my measurements. Okay, so now after folding it, I'm going to start by taking my shoulder measurement. The shoulder is 14 divided by 2, that's 7 inches. So I mark 7 inches here, and for my neckline is like a turtle neckline, so I want the width to be 2.75, and then the length of the neckline for the back is going to be 1 inch, and for the front is going to be 3 inches. Okay, so using my curved ruler, I'm going to connect that. So this is just like making a regular basic bodice. There's really nothing to it. So on my shoulder area, I'm going to make a shoulder slope of 1 inch, and I'm going to connect that to my neck point. So now you can use any fabric of your choice for this. You can use doll face, you can use, just make sure the fabric is strong enough because you want it to be a bit stiff. So you can use damask, you can use any nice fabric that you know can stand on its own. So now the next measurement I need is my armhole measurement, and that's 8 inches for me. And on that point, I'm going to take my bust measurement. So the bust I'm working with is 38 divided by 4 is 9.5. So on that armhole area, I'm going to mark the 9.5, and then I'm going to draw my armhole measurement. I hope you can see my marker. Just follow what I'm doing and I'm sure we'll get it. It's very simple. Okay. So now the next measurement is my waist measurement, and that is 16 inches. And then I'm going to mark my hip measurement, and the hip measurement is 26 inches, and then the full length. So the total length of this is 38 inches, and I'm adding 1 inch seam allowance to make it 39 inches. So here I'm going to draw my waistline and my hip line. So on the waistline, I'm taking my waist measurement of 28 inches. 28 divided by 4 is 7 inches. So this is 7 inches. And here my hip is 40 inches. 40 divided by 4 is 10. So I have 10 inches there. And then I'm just going to take 10 inches down to the hem. You can make this in form of a straight line, or you can just leave it as, you can even make it a pencil dress if you want. If you want to have a slit, but I'm just going to maintain my hip measurements there, and because it's a short dress, you'll still be able to wear it and walk freely. So now I'm adding a seam allowance of 1.5 inches to all of them. So I have 1.5 on the hem, 1.5 on my hip line, 1.5 inches also on the waistline, and I'm adding the same thing on the bust. So now using my curved ruler, I'm going to connect all of my measurements. I'm not adding a dart to this. I add that to yours if you want. So make sure you don't have any sharp points, then you connect all of them. So after connecting it, now I'm going to cut it out. So cutting it out means I'm cutting both my front and back together. Okay, so now I'm cutting all of them. So for the neckline, I'm going to cut the back neckline first. Remember, it's higher. Then after cutting the back neckline, I'm going to raise the front and cut the front neckline also. I'm going to cut out my shoulder slope, and finally I'll cut my armhole. So now remember, this has an overlap in front. So for the overlap, I'm going to take my, because I don't want to waste fabric, you can actually cut this directly also on your fabric, but for the overlap I'm going to take the front pattern alone. I'm going to take the front pattern alone and then cut it on a paper, which is going to be a guide for me to cut my fabric, because I don't want to waste too much fabric. Okay, so now I've placed this on a paper. Like I said, I don't want to waste fabric, so, and the paper is also on fold, so I'm just going to remove my actual fabric and open this pattern. So this is what I have. So the next thing now is to create the overlap. So if you look at the thumbnail, that is our sample, you can see that the overlap starts on the other side. That is the shoulder of the other side. So for this now, I'm going to go over to the shoulder point now, and then you measure where you want it to be. You can just divide what you have left on your shoulder, but for me, I'm just going to measure 2 inches. So I have 2 inches here. So now after measuring that 2 inches, I'm also going to go over to the hem line, and then I'm going to decide where I want this to stop. You can just maintain what you have here, or you can just slant it. But on my hem line also, this is the center front, I can see the crease line here. I'm just going to move here by 3 to 4 inches, and then I'm going to mark it. So after marking it there, I'm going to connect it from the shoulder, where I have this mark on the shoulder, all the way to the hem line in a straight line. So after joining it, this is what it looks like. I hope you can see it. It's just like a straight line. So if you are okay with it, you can leave it like this, but if you want it slanted also from your shoulder point, you can just slant it. So it depends on you and the style you want to go for. If you want to slant it, you can see how I just placed my tape measure, and that will just be around 1 or 2 inches from the center front, and then you connect it anyhow you want. So now I'm just going to, I want it a bit slanted, so I'm just going to mark it here, and then I'm going to redraw my straight line. So after redrawing my straight line, now I'm going to cut it out so that I can cut it on my actual fabric. So this is optional. Actually, you can leave it straight, but totally up to you and the design that you want to form. So now after getting it like this, I'm going to cut my design out, and then I'm going to cut it on my fabric. So the side that you actually need, I'm no longer using this other line, I'm using this side. So now I'm going to cut it out, and then I'll place it on my fabric to complete my outfit. So now when you are cutting this on your fabric, make sure you had seam allowance to turn it with lining, because this side is actually going to show. You want it to have like that seam allowance, so that you're not going to have any shortage when you're adding it to your fabric, to your main bodice. Okay, so I'm going ahead to cut it out now, and then I'm going to remove it. So if you're going to be adding lining to this at this point, you need to cut your lining exactly the same way you have cut your fabric out, and then you use them to turn out each other. But I'm not going to be fixing a lining here, so I'm just going to hem it on this side. But it's really advisable for you to fix lining, but I don't have black lining right now. So now this is the main bodice now, and this is the overlap that I'm going to place on top of it. So the only lining that I'm going to do, if I'm going to be adding lining to this, I'm just going to be adding it on the overlap, because that's going to be external and it's going to show. But for the main other bodies, I'm not going to be fixing a lining to it. So you can see what we have here. So you can see where your overlap stop. At this point also, if you don't like how it is, you can still reshape it, but I'm okay with what I have here. You can see the line that I have here, and I'm okay with it. So I'll go ahead now and cut out lining for the overlap alone. I'm going to turn it out, then I'm going to show us how we're going to couple everything together. Okay, so I've cut lining for the overlap like I said, and then I sew it round. You can see, I used a green thread so that you can see. I just sew it round here on the opening part, on the hem, and also on the side seam. So I left it on the upper part here because there's a bishop collar there, and then I also left it here. That's where I'm going to turn it out. So I'll just open it up now and turn it out neatly. So if you're adding lining to the other ones also, that is exactly how you're going to line it separately. You're going to fix your line. Okay, so I've turned it now. The next thing is just to give it a good press, but you can see it is neat both in and out. So after doing this now, you're going to bring in your front bodice, and then I'm going to lay the overlap on it. Okay, so you know by then you must have turned this also. The hem will also be neatly finished, but I'm just going to fold in this hem. So now I'm going to lay it on it like this, and then I'm going to lay the back on it also. So I'll join it on the shoulder and also on the side using my seam allowance. So I'm matching this up now. This is my front. Now I'm going to bring in the back, so you can close the zipper allowance so that you can work with it easily. So after closing your zipper allowance, you're going to place the back on it, right side facing right side like this, and then I'm going to join it on the shoulder and also on the side seam. So I'll do this now and then bring it back to show us what we have. So I've gone ahead to sew it on the shoulder and also on the side. So if you turn it out, this is what it looks like. So we're almost through. It's a very simple dress to make. So now this is what the back looks like. I just closed it tentatively, and this is what the front is looking like. So this is the overlap that we have in front. So now you just give this a good press. So the next thing now is to cut out our puff sleeve, and then I'm going to cut out my bishop collar. So I already have a detailed tutorial on how you can cut your bishop collar on the channel, so you may want to check that out. I'm going to cut out my bishop collar and sew it around the collar, and now I'm going to cut out the sleeve also and fix the sleeve to the dress. So the sleeve is a puff sleeve, and I have several of it on the channel already, so I'm just going to rush through it. So now I'm going to cut it in a bias form. I'm folding it in a triangular form like this. You can fold it anyhow you want depending on the amount of fabric you have, but as you can see, I don't have too much fabric, and I'm going to be using this for the two sleeves, so I'm not going to be folding it to the end. But if you want it really full, you can just fold it till the end completely like this. You can see what we have, but for me, I'm just going to be folding it a bit like this now, and then I'm going to start taking my measurements. So I'm just going to rule this place now as my starting point, and then on this open part here, I'm going to go down by 3.5 inches for my calf's height, and from this upper part here, I'm going to connect it to form my armhole. So after forming my armhole like this, just make sure you check and it is enough for your sleeve. If it's not enough, you can just extend this and broaden it out a bit. Just make sure you have something that is enough. So now after measuring that, the next thing is to measure your sleeve length. My sleeve length is 22 inches. This is a long sleeve, but because there's going to be a curve for 2 inches, that's going to be 20 inches. So for it to be puffy, I'm going to add extra 3 to 5 inches to it. So if I'm adding 3, or I can just add 4 inches, then I'll make that 24 inches. So now from this head, that's the upper part here, I'm going to measure 24 inches all round. Okay, so from there I'm going to measure 24 inches all round, and I'll connect it and then cut it out. So that's my sleeve. After connecting it like that, I'm going to cut it. So this is not going to be too puffy because I don't have a lot of fabric. So if you want it to be really puffy, if you are using a fabric that has a length of 60 inches, you can work with 3.5 to 4 yards of fabric. It should be enough for you, and then it will give you something really puffy. So now I have my first sleeve. I'm just going to use this first sleeve to cut out the second sleeve. So this is what it looks like now. If you open it, you can see what we have, and I'm just going to gather the hem into the cuff. So for my cuff now, I'm going to measure around my wrist. Okay, So measuring it now, I have 9 inches. So, and I want it to be a 2 inches cuff. I'll add ½ inch seam allowance to it, and that's going to give me 2.5 inches. So on fold, I'll have to have ½ inches on fold, which means by the time I open it out, it's going to be 5 inches. So now, once I have the 2.5 inches like this, I'm going to fold it into 2. Remember, I measured 9 inches. So 9 inches divided by 2 is going to give me 4.5, and then I'm going to add 1 inch seam allowance to it, and that's going to give me around 5.5 inches. So I'll cut that out for my cuff. Okay, so this is going to be my cuff. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to gather all of this, all the hem of my sleeve. So this is the hem of my sleeve. I'm going to gather all of it to fit into my cuff now, and then I'm going to close it up like that. So I'm going to cut the other sleeve. You can see I'm just rushing it. I have a detailed tutorial on it already on the channel, so if you don't understand it, you may want to check that out. I use this to cut the other sleeve also, and then we can continue. Okay, so I've gone ahead to add my collar to it. As you can see, my bishop collar is fixed, and also I gathered the sleeve. So I don't have enough for the other band, so I just used a plain black for my cuff and also my collar. So like I said, you need about 3.5 to 4 yards of fabric so that you have enough fabric to work with. So this is the bishop sleeve. You can see the extent of the puffiness that I have here. So by the time we place it on the mannequin, you will see it's better. So now this is the overlap that we have here, and I'm going to be decorating it with these buttons. So it's totally up to you. If you want it to be flying like you have it here, you can just fix your button on it like this. But if you want it to be glued to the main fabric, like you want the overlap to be together with the main fabric, all you just need to do now, when you're fixing your button, make sure you take your overlap and your front bodies together. But when you're fixing the button, so that by the time you fix it, it's going to make them stay together. So you have your overlap and your front bodies joined together like that. So it's totally up to you and what you want to achieve. So I'll go ahead now and fix my buttons to this, and then I'll bring it back to show us what we have. Okay, so this is what the dress looks like. This is a bishop collar, and like I said, the detailed tutorial is on the channel if you don't know how to make a bishop collar. And also this is the sleeve. So it's a puff sleeve with curve, and you can see the puffiness that measurement gave me. It's beautiful and it's really lovely. So now if you want your buttons, if you want the flap joint to the bodice, like I said, you just need to fix your button together like I did mine. You can see that it is together. And if you don't want it together, if you want the flap to be flowing like this, just fix the flap, just fix the button on the flap separately, and it's going to be free. So this is what the full view of the dress looks like. I hope you enjoyed making this tutorial with me. If you enjoyed it, let us know in the comment section. Like, comment and subscribe to our channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.